Acest videoclip prezintă informații, mărturii și interpretări referitoare la chestiuni extraterestre. Sursele și perspectivele pot varia. Spectatorii sunt încurajați să efectueze propriile cercetări și să ajungă la propriile concluzii.
Class 11. ET disclosure. What do official governmental disclosures mean?
Hello! Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Space Academy's special episode. And I say special as I will have guests with me today in the room, and I will be taking questions from them during the class. I am also in a different room to fit more with today's subject of official ET disclosures, a topic that is quite burning in alternative circles nowadays, as the public's attention is guided more and more towards ET-related matters. No, I will not be giving any disclosures myself, although it might look so from the official setup, but I will give you several perspectives that are important to consider when viewing this subject. Of course, these are our perspectives, and you are free to form your own ideas. And as a disclaimer, by the way, I must say the same regarding all the episodes you have watched and will be watching in the future. Everything I share here is based on the points of view and information that is mine, as well as that gathered in my recent 7-year interaction with the people closely associated with our planet. In the future, I will go into who they are more, but for now, keep this in mind. I do not present the knowledge as absolute truths, especially when it comes to difficult to understand subjects in their totality, such as the Galactic Federation, or even today's topic of possible governmental ET disclosures. These are simply our perspectives, what we know, and no one has the whole picture. So, official disclosures of the ET life. In the previous episodes, we talked about the existence of extraterrestrials, stellar people, the Galactic Federation, etc. But is all this something the governments actually know about? And if they do, why are they covering it up? And more importantly, would they ever tell us the truth? And can I trust it? Okay, well, let's begin to break it down. Before jumping in, let's look at the term disclosure itself, which is nothing else but the action of making something new or secret known, disclosed. In that sense, let's be real. Extraterrestrial disclosure is nothing new. It has actually been happening for a very, very long time, with information coming out on many levels and from many sources, be it whistleblowers, contactees, sightings, visual evidence, abductions, memories, and the list can go on. Even though the veracity of many of the sources and stories may be questioned, the point is the subject has already been disclosed, studied, and continues to be so in many different ways. ET people themselves have been making their presence known in a variety of ways, through many disclosures throughout the years. Even us, what we do in Space Academy, that is also a kind of disclosure. Obviously though, and unfortunately, it is not what the mainstream audience seeks as credible sources of information. It is not official, and hence most of these types of disclosures get dismissed, not even reaching the public, who is programmed to only trust what's coming from what they view as authorities. If the governments and official science say we are alone, that must be the case, right? How unfortunate most members of Earth's society still blindly assume that whatever comes out of the official sources
must be exactly as things are.
The very fact that people want official ET disclosure shows that most of the human population is incapable of thinking for themselves, just waiting for a great daddy, that is a socially accepted scientist or, better yet, a government, to officially announce the existence of other extraterrestrial races. Otherwise, they simply cannot be part of their reality, when the evidence has always been there, before their eyes.
Unfortunate as it is, let's have a closer look then at those official sources, because it is there where many people will turn if there ever is any type of disclosure coming from there. Do the governments even believe in or know about ET life? Supposedly we are alone, so it seems we either really are or they are not telling us what they know. What do they know?
Short answer, they do know about it and others do not. Governments, like any other power structure on Earth discussed in previous episodes, operate in a compartmentalized manner, so the layers below do not have access to the more privileged information available above. Therefore, on the low level of political structure, many officials may truly believe we are alone, as they themselves base their views on what's officially presented to everyone else. But when we move on to the deeper levels, hidden behind the public eye, those whom the lower-ranking ones obey, they start to understand more. And ultimately, they absolutely know we are not alone, that there are more forces at play, and are also aware of direct interactions between some ET groups and those we have been calling the Deep Cabal, not to mention their own interactions and treaties, which we won't go into now. But why are they hiding this from the public, you will ask? The question is valid. All questions are. And the answer to this actually lies in the previous episodes to do with the Matrix, the control systems on Earth, and the Galactic Federation. We even covered it in the very previous class, Why ET Life Matters. So please watch those videos to understand the larger context.
In short, they hide the truth because they want to maintain the status quo of the control system on Earth and the Matrix environment in which to continue to exploit humans. From the Galactic Federation level, they would also add they want to maintain the playfield experience for the countless souls who wish to experience the limitations and struggles for the reasons of personal growth. Political answer, I know, but that's what many up there say. And besides plain hiding, I would say they are shaping our perception about the topic, as the information about the ETs has been leaking continuously since more or less the 1940s and gaining momentum. They have invested a lot of effort since then to make sure the truth about ET life is well disguised under disinformation campaigns, infiltrations, entertainment, and even seemingly legitimate projects to study the phenomenon.
At least since the decade of 1940, government agencies have been hard at work, doing their best to guide and control the public's perception about UFO phenomena. One of its most known operations to achieve this is Project Blue Book. They disguised a disinformation campaign as a supposedly transparent, publicly approved research into the phenomena, and it always ended up disqualifying all incidents as misunderstandings, atmospheric phenomena, or as simple hoaxes. Nothing has changed nowadays.
So, will they finally tell the public the truth and what they know? Should I be excited? I would be lying if I said that I do not support wanting to expose the lies about the subject, and for our skeptic friends and families and the masses to finally see that we're not crazy after all. But let's think about this for a while, and about what we said in previous episodes, and you will be able to answer the question yourself. We have established that what we are seeing on Earth is a set of artificially imposed concepts amassed as objective reality, the matrix. We have seen that those that dictate those concepts, having us locked there, like whether we are or not alone in the universe, are the controllers we call the cabal, organized through hierarchies of power structures. We have looked at the infiltrations within the UFO and the New Age circles, and how they imbue them with guided narratives. We have observed the connection to the Galactic Federation and how they do their utmost to retain this place as a self-sustained realm with its own rules and belief systems. We have examined how dangerous to the Matrix it would be if the truth about the ETs and our place in the cosmos were to finally come out. So, answer this now. Will they tell us the truth? On the basis of everything discussed so far, what do you think?
Let me state clearly what our stance is as of now. The only information the governments will ever release is whatever political agenda suits those that operate behind them. Do you really expect they will one day wake up, grow conscious, and innocently come to us deciding to reveal the facts on top of which they have been sitting for hundreds of years, trembling for it to never come out? This is something that the big bulk of our public still doesn't understand, and where the problem lies. Governments and those at the levels beyond them do not have our best interest at heart, and lying and scheming is what they are best at. The shady groups of the cabal, and even shadier ET groups cooperating with them, will always just give the people what they want them to think. And they will want the people to think and believe only a specific package or group of concepts that have been carefully prepared and engineered by their intelligence community, and with the help of their psychological warfare experts. Do not forget what we said about power structures on Earth. The superficial, available to the masses governments and low-level politicians are not who is running the show, especially not on the topics that are vastly important to the whole design of the system of Earth. They have been dominating this planet for millennia. You think they would just let a government or two, and whatever puppets are placed there, yes, presidents are puppets too, get away with suddenly opening their mouth on the subject they had a lid on all this time without a carefully designed strategy first? And if they didn't think it benefited them in some way in the first place? The governments are simply not the right source to turn to for any truthful intelligence regarding the ET life, or anything for that matter. Perhaps only scraps and most harmless to the elites bits. If the information comes from any governmental organization, you should immediately doubt its veracity, since it comes directly from sources that are connected to the mind control system.
Accepting that there are extraterrestrials would bring about a series of chain reactions that would destroy the concept and all that makes up the matrix that they have so painstakingly imposed upon the people. For them to accept that there are extraterrestrials would be to accept that there are more people like them out there in the first place, which would destroy their natural sciences, evolution. It would introduce people to the idea that they are stellar too, therefore free. They would see the lies that have been imposed on them for no less than thousands of years. It would also have a consequence of making people aware of the existence of free energy and transportation technologies. This would collapse entire economies, their markets, their banking. It would liberate everyone's minds. It would make them free and uncontrollable.
And that is why, no, we do not think they are interested in revealing to the public their truthful picture about anything. Okay, perhaps I can make a pause now and take a few questions from the audience. Please raise your hand if you have any questions related to what we've been discussing so far. Yes, young lady in the first row.
If extraterrestrial races have been visiting, living, and interacting with humanity since the dawn of time, and our governments are covering up the evidence, why would they disclose their existence now?
Excellent question, thank you. And about which I can only speculate, as we do not have access to the inner workings of the political game going on among the ranks of the cabal and their shady masters cooperating with them, or as to why they make the decisions that they make. Exactly. We just know that everything they do is always with an agenda, calculated and staged. Why now? If I may, I have a material prepared exactly to deal with this question.
As I said earlier, they have been denying the existence of life outside Earth, but also shaping and confusing human perception about these subjects for decades now, trying to control what's leaking as much as they can and with various tactics. But it seems it's more and more out of their hands, especially with fast communication technologies reaching the whole world. The internet, devices to record what's in the skies and share it immediately, people in general discussing the topic more openly, whistleblowers disclosing evidence, not to mention the presence of starseeds. I will explain in detail who they are in future episodes, who go out there sharing what they know and remember. And even though witnesses coming forward, especially governmental and military ones, that's a slippery subject and they cannot be entirely trusted, as the most probable reason why those people are coming forward is because they are playing a role as controlled opposition. The fact is that the extraterrestrial phenomena and evidence are overwhelming the government's power to deny their existence anymore, as they have been doing so far. Disclosures that are not theirs are simply happening everywhere, and that's no way of controlling the subject enough for them.
The extraterrestrial disclosure is taking place, like it or not, and they do not control it in its entirety as before. It has gotten out of hand. What they do is try to control or guide what is disclosed to earn more time, because their society is falling apart. They try to guide the disclosure as much as they can. They also attempt to confuse and flood it with disinformation to create confusion.
So, since the disclosures are happening out there anyway, wouldn't it be better to make it look as if we joined the club, so to speak, and then we can direct ourselves what people think about the ETs? After all, the vast majority of the population still depends on what we tell them. Let's go and give them our own, but controlled, version of what's happening. In other words, it could be their way of monopolizing the subject, claiming it as their own. It is as Lenin said in his times, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. And that is what is referred to as controlled opposition mentioned earlier. I must say, as a side note, that this is the way to scoop up not only part of the public that is curious but quite naive about the subject, but also many members of the UFO communities as well. Because strangely, and contrary to what they themselves always preach about not trusting the authorities, they also seem to be excited and await the official revelations. I do understand why that is though, We all want the validation. It's not easy to live being labeled as a conspiracy nut. We all know that. But hey, let's be careful here. And let's not have them manipulate that validation need for their own benefit. And I will also briefly mention that I personally have a feeling that the possible disclosure is a reflection of some kind of struggle for power between antagonistic factions of the cabal and or not so positive ET groups themselves. But I don't have any more information or insights on that for now. Just wanted to throw that in for the record. Okay, let's see what other questions you have. Yes, the gentleman with the hat, please.
I agree, Gosha, but is it possible that the Federation recognized collective consciousness has reached a level where this information can be disclosed? This would allow the cessation of denial. What if collective frequency has reached a threshold that simply facilitates the reception of this information?
Thank you. Wow, such a good question. And you put me a little bit in the spot here because it is a valid thing to ask. After all, perceptions do create realities. It's what I have been saying since the beginning. So if we choose to see the disclosure only in the terms of manipulations and lies, isn't that what we will obtain? Because it could very well be, like you say, that the level of collective consciousness has risen sufficiently and we did indeed become a match to or manifesting the period of lies coming to an end and some kind of positive turn of events on the horizon out of all of this. Okay, let me put it this way. I do believe that the level of consciousness is rising, although not enough yet. I do believe that many of us are becoming more ready for open disclosure of ET reality and even contact itself. Heck, that's why I opened even the Space Academy. And I do believe in the power of concentrated attention towards positive outcomes for that to become part of our individual and collective reality. And I do want to remain idealistic about the possibilities, just like you are, so don't lose that. However, I also believe that part of the awakening and becoming ready for better timelines is first becoming aware of roadblocks precisely so that they can dissolve. The so-called awakening means awakening to the good, but also to what is not so. As want it or not, this is a very dualistic realm that we are living in, and there are different powers at play. Yes, we might be reaching some kind of threshold, maybe, but that is what makes us see more through the lies and tricks. Our consciousness is rising, yes, so we hopefully no longer need the validation of what many of us already know coming from the control systems who are intrinsically linked to hiding that in the first place. We are growing in discernment and leaving the dependence on those systems for truth, who in turn depend on our total submission to them for mere survival. We are transcending all that and becoming freer. And that's the real sign of consciousness rising. So no, we're not being negative, not trusting the power structures and what comes out of their low-level mouthpieces. We are awakening to know better than that. That's at least my belief. The Federation, according to my sources, is nowhere near interested in opening the Earth's population to the ET reality, at least not the bulk of them. I'm sorry if that burst anyone's bubbles. There are individual positive ET races and people who want that for the humans, but they do not present the majority as of now. And most of them are not in positive cooperation with any Earth government. The last time I checked. All that disclosure talk is brewing and getting orchestrated mainly on the deep cabal level of things. Possibly and most likely in cahoots with the darker ET groups, which we will look at later. Some perhaps even Federation members themselves. However, it's really difficult to know how the whole picture of it all looks. And I do not claim to have the full understanding. Quite the contrary, there are many pieces missing. On top of it, the events and decisions, agendas are constantly being adjusted and changing, and on all levels of the power structure, even including the positive ETs and what they are up to themselves. So who knows? Perhaps something positive can indeed come out of the official disclosures. Perhaps some positive ET group got control over the cabal factions, and it is them directing it from behind. I very much doubt it though, although I do reserve the right to adjust my conclusions as the time goes. But as of now, and this is another important can of worms here, it is all indicating to me and to my friends with whom I have worked in the past 7 years that rather than disclosure meaning something beneficial for humanity, it might be actually moving towards something that the cabal has been planning for a very long time. And that is some kind of scenario of a false alien invasion. And this is a big subject in itself, and we don't have time for it today, but let me just say that the way they have been feeding the public in recent years with ET-related news is very suspicious. Feels orchestrated, directed, and it seems they are preparing the public perception for something.
What further points to that, and not to that being a part of the real and benevolent disclosure process, is that many of the so-called UFO news disclosed in the media recently were simply lies. In August 2021, they supposedly declassified craft videos, having everyone talking about the beginning of the real disclosure. And as my friends discovered, it was simply a man-made drone. They even told us exact details of it. The aircraft type was a UAV or unmanned drone. Manufacturer, Raytheon Aerospace. User, United States Navy. The government supposedly released the videos of the UFO, but they were images of pilots following an advanced Raytheon drone in its flight tests. In 2023, the public was given the information that the United States Air Force shot down a high-altitude object, supposedly a UFO, that had entered U.S. airspace over Alaska. That too turned out not to be true, although we don't have time to go into the details of that now. What's up with all that then? What we believe is going on is that the very same three-letter agencies fabricate those photos and videos which they then say are leaks, pass them on to the public for conspiracies to bounce their ideas off and waste their time on. And in the process, they validate the fake alien invasion. The fake alien invasion merits its own video, and it will be done as the follow-up to the video today. But I will just say, this is something the cabal has been keeping up their sleeves for a very long time. And it seems they might be prepping the terrain for it more vigorously lately. In 1977, before he died, Werner von Braun, the German-American aerospace engineer and space architect, said that the last card to be played in a series of global deceptions by the controllers would be the alien card. He supposedly confided that there was a plan to create a series of false threats to justify bringing weapons into space. We are going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens, and all of it is a lie, he said before he died.
Whether they ever go forward with it is unknown, but we do believe all the disclosure talk and media rush about this or that event to do with the UFOs or space, like the recent Atlas craze, has to do very probably with that agenda. Has the time finally arrived? Is that where they are going with it? Well, we shall see. And at this point, I want to announce that the topic of the next class will be exactly the false alien invasion. That's going to be the study of our next video. So stay tuned for that. There's just no time for me to squeeze it all in here today. Okay, I think we have time for another quick question from the audience. Last one. Yes, the lady in the third row, please.
You said not to trust the official sources, but that the non-official ones are infiltrated too. That we should only trust ourselves, but as ordinary people, we have no direct information ourselves. How do we distinguish true disclosure from lies?
The question is very important, thank you. It's something that I would ask myself as well. However, I'm afraid that there isn't any specific and easy to follow instruction on how to identify true information, in this case to do with the ET life, from false or implanted information. And it has been designed this way. The confusion and having people exhaust themselves looking for answers is what the controllers want. That's how they manage to keep many well-meaning seekers away from the subject. There's just too much going on, too much contradictions, too much chaos, too much arguing over who is right, whose sources are correct, who is the infiltrator and who isn't, etc., etc. I really, really feel the frustration here. But I will answer this way. Research, analyze, think, feel, contemplate, question whatever interests you, and learn to trust yourself to reach the conclusions, to know what seems coherent and relevant to you at any point and what doesn't. There isn't a magical formula to follow to distinguish fiction from truth. And I will never tell you who I think is right and who isn't either. It may not always be correct what or who you decide to trust, but learn to accept to err, to live with a question, with uncertainty, as someone said to me long ago. To live in harmony with others who choose different conclusions. And what is essential, to always adapt and reach new ones if more coherent data, intellectually as well as emotionally, become available. Be patient and actually enjoy and cherish the process. Don't feel overly anxious to get everything right. Reaching the truth is not one A to B arrow journey. It is a constant meandering and expanding into new level of awareness and knowledge. Awakening is not meant to be draining, I don't think. It's only the powers that be that want you to feel that way. And in my own personal understanding, there are no errors. Even when you go with the information that will possibly turn out wrong in the future, it was something you resonated with at the time for a reason. So do not bash yourself for possibly entrusting the wrong source. Just trust yourself at each step of the way. And to harness that trust, that inner trust, learn practices to clear and calm your mind as much as possible. Meditate, contemplate, analyze. This is the only most trusted way to know what is correct for you at this moment in time. There are as many realities as worldviews out there, and no one possesses a monopoly over the ultimate one. And from the more practical standpoint about how to distinguish the information, the true information from implanted or erroneous one, I would add that the more officially accepted the group or a person is, whether it is the mainstream or the alternative media, the more probability there is they are compromised. Generalizing, of course. The UFO circles have been flooded with sponsored operatives, and they are usually the ones gathering large followings. It's never a little guy with their personal story. Of course, there are quacky stories among those as well, but it's usually the biggest ones, I would say, for whom you need to watch out. I don't say don't listen to them. Simply be aware and let your inner self be the ultimate guide. It always must be you. Guys, I could talk and talk and talk, but I think this is all I have time for today. I absolutely love being here with you today, and I love this format, your questions, so I'm sure we are going to repeat this. For now, I will say goodbye to the audience, and I will see you in the final comments. Official ET disclosure. Well, many people are celebrating the possibility. I, with full honesty, am treading with much more caution. Small and controlled bits of truth, but ultimately entangled towards unclear and suspicious agendas, that's not disclosure. We deserve much more than that. Yes, on some level, disclosure might facilitate the topic gaining wider acceptance, and that's why many are being lured. But at what cost? As a member of our community said recently on our social media, to have true official disclosure, it will require honesty, integrity, trust of the givers and receivers of the info. No hidden agendas, no manipulation. Once that is achieved, true full disclosure from official channels would be possible. Until then, it's just a pipe dream. Yes, the alternative communities are full of fake ET stories created by dark organizations, but what would come out of the governments, just because it is official, is in no way more real. In fact, much less. Where it would impact our world are the consequences of disclosing it, the follow-up, depending on what part of the overall picture they would choose to talk about. That's where the game would reveal more of its colors. We will not trust it, but we will have to watch it unfold. And the last quote I want to share is from one of our stellar friends, where a few years ago she said,
"There is no reason whatsoever for there to be a full disclosure of star families, this year or any other. In our opinion, if that would happen, it would dissolve the illusion of the 3D matrix on Earth. And they, the controllers, are not interested in doing so because they would lose control over the people, unless their plan is to do a controlled and heavily manipulated event that mimics a disclosure, and that is the false alien invasion."
And that is precisely the topic of our next class. We meet again here in this room, this time without the invited audience, and we will continue digging into the subject, but from the angle of the possible staged alien attack. Okay, and where are our community members and their videos today? Well, they are there, ready to share what they think. But I had to transfer them to the next video because this one had a different format and was long as it is. I'm sorry about that. But for sure, you will see their perspectives in the next one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you here again very soon. Take care.
Summary. Extraterrestrial disclosures have been ongoing for a very long time, in various forms and shapes and on many levels. It is not new. They are hiding the ET presence from the public in order to maintain the status quo of the Matrix on Earth for reasons of exploitation, from the deeper level above, to preserve the playfield for the souls wanting a challenge. The cabal might want to reveal something about the ET reality, out of fear of losing control over the truth coming out from various sources anyway. It is our conviction that whatever the governments might reveal will never serve the public, will always be with the agenda, only pieces of truth, and only the ones that serve their own interests. Seeing through many of the cabal's game is a sign of consciousness growth, beyond simple attachment to authorities for validation. The pieces of news related to UFO matters in the media, or given by the government, might be their way of preparing the ground for the scenario of false alien invasion. There isn't a clear way to discern true disclosure from false, and you must accept the error to live with the uncertainty, to trust and connect the dots yourself. But the more official it is, more likely it is compromised. It is very difficult to understand the whole picture, and we must all reach new conclusions as the events unfold.